We're on.
Alright. Hey gentlemen, let's call this meeting to order. I guess staff for roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Schneider?
Here.
Commissioner Weigert? Here. Commissioner Wolf?
Here.
Commissioner Hedstrom? Here. Commissioner Volkman?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
And Commissioner Feldbush is out this evening.
And we.
The rest of us. Alright. And we have a motion for approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes. Second.
Alright, the motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say sign. Alright, no new business. Alright, Tim, we'll turn it over to you for old business.
Okay. Way back in February, we kind of talked about addressing the lot split procedures that we have for our subdivision regulations. We have a one split rule, the way it currently is enforced. And that one split means that if you have, like, it doesn't matter what acreage you have, you can split that once, and basically you can't split it again until you basically have to, the property owner has to record a covenant. This is all done administratively through my office. They record a covenant with their survey stating that if they try to split it again, that they're gonna have to get it rezoned or platted, the rest of it. I personally thought that was kind of a messy situation, because a lot of times people will want to, like, let's say if you have an agricultural situation where you're splitting off land, two farmers that are adjacent to each other, they want some land that the other one can't access, and they deed it over to the other, and that land then basically kind of gets swallowed up. I wanted a way of distinguishing between those types of transactions, those ag transactions, and the residential transactions. And so what I did is I kind of referred to some surrounding counties. I know Marion County has a similar process that we have, but they, instead of one split rule, they have a three split rule, which I asked some advice from some other folks. They said that's probably a little too much, but to have three splits without having to do a plat. So I looked at Saline County. Saline County has a completely different system. It's based on what they call building rights, one for every 80 acres is what they figure. So you can split your lot or put a house on the lot and split that off. Like, let's say if you have 80 acres, you're allowed one building right. If you have 160, that's two building rights, the whole thing. And if it's less than 80 acres, then you're considered to have basically one building right by right, and you can't put any more on there.
But is there any discussion of splitting? If I have 60 acres, can I sell off 30 and have two building rights?
Yeah, you can basically, they have another system that's in place over there where you can do what do you call it? Transfer of development rights. So you'll have, what Saline County did was back in 1978, they assigned building rights to all the parcels.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ones that were in the floodplain, they don't want to have developed. The county's kind of discouraged that. So what you do is you can find somebody who's got that building rights that are in the floodplain and transfer them over to which is a good, little thing, but it kind of gets complicated.
Yeah.
I didn't want to use that as example. So I just wanted to try to keep it as simple as possible for us. But at the February meeting, a staff initiated review of the procedures for agricultural lot splits was considered with the intent of clarifying the language within section 3106 to distinguish lot splits intended for residential use from those divisions intended for agricultural purposes and with no intent of a home site. In April, staff updated the commission on a possible alternative to the currently enforced language, which would incorporate a process referred to that I've called a subdivision exception, and that is, I did use Saline County's language. It is a subdivision exception that they have over there. It's just, it's a little different than what I'm proposing here, and I'm not gonna go, but anyway. This process would establish original parcels, okay, as those zoned as either Ag 40 or Ag 80 existing prior to January 1st of 2017. The reason I chose that is because that's the year I started here. And so I've been keeping track of all the splits since 2017. And I've got a whole big filing cabinet full of them. And this would be entitled to one administrative split, which is what I do now. Administrative splits are enforced by staff as outlined currently in 3106. Those parcels created since January 1st, 2017, since I've been here that I have on record, would be considered secondary parcels with any future division of 3 acres or to less than 40 acres, so 3 to 39 or whatever, requiring approval through the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission may approve this one additional split for residential use through the subdivision exception process. The property owner would then record a covenant restricting the remaining original parcel to ag use only unless a plat or rezoning is agreed to. The reason I chose, like I say, 2017 is because I needed some way of orienting where do you start, what is, the way that previous staff did this is they said, oh, all you have to do, and they told me this, they said, all you have to do is just start the clock over. Since my predecessor left, I said, do you keep track of how these things are, what parcel, how do I know how many times it's been split, and what's an original parcel? How far back do I go? He says, oh, you just start the clock over. Don't worry about what's in the file, just, treat it like it's, you're starting it over and saying, okay, so this guy got split over on here, and then again, he gets it split again when I do it, and then the next guy after me splits that again, that's not good.
It's kind of loosey-goosey.
It's kind of loosey-goosey.
That's a funny thing for the site.
That's like zero control.
Yeah, there's no control, yeah, it's kind of like kicking the can down the road is basically what it is. And so what I did is the property owner would record that covenant restricting the remaining original parcel to ag use only. And this is what we currently do under the administrative split. So when someone comes in and wants to do that one split, that the paperwork I have has that language in here about the covenant between the property owner and the county, and that they agree not to split it again, unless it goes, trouble with that is it gets lost in translation because it gets changed, that changes hands. Nobody looks at sometimes what's recorded, because it's recorded at the Register of Deeds, and sometimes when a property changes hands, the new owner doesn't know that that's in there. And so what I wanted was to find some way of making it a public process where we get it officially on the record that this is what's going on, and I wanted you guys to sign off on it for a second split. So if they want to split it again, they got to go through you guys. So basically the way I've given you kind of the wording as it's currently worded, and the proposed wording I've got for original parcels, all parcels, and legal lots of record in existence prior to January 1st of 2017 shall be considered original parcels and may produce one additional lot on properties zoned as either Ag 80 or Ag 40. That would be if there's prior to 2016, if there have been no splits since 2017, since I started, that's an original parcel. It's not, and so they're entitled to one additional split, it's administratively by that, by my definition. The provisions of section, and I go over what the provisions are that basically mirror what's currently enforced. That's for A, all parcels, legal lots of record existing prior to January 1st of 2017. Item B, and I say I've got this highlighted, please note this is a rare transaction. Transfers of land or adjustment of property lines resulting in parcels with a minimum of 3 acres and less than 40 with no residential structure and used exclusively for agricultural purposes as defined within the zoning regulations may be approved administratively by staff provided the approval guidelines specified in section 3104 are complied with. The lot created shall maintain the minimum lot frontage on a public road as required under the provisions of the Dickinson County zoning regulations applicable to the size of lot created for the split. And I added or otherwise include a recorded access easement of 50 feet. If you read in the Ag 40 and Ag 80 zoning districts, you wanted to.
No, go ahead.
If you read in your Ag 40 and Ag 80 zoning districts under lots size, there is what they call a homestead agricultural lot split. Okay, that's for existing homes that are in the middle of a section that, let's say somebody wants to keep all the ag land around that home, but they want to sell the house off only. So, but there's no access to the road, so they have to include an access easement, record that with their plat or with their survey. This is kind of similar to that, because what it is it's saying that you have, and I'll get up and show you here in just a second. You'll have like one property owner that's like, let's say they've got one ag zoned lot that's like 30 acres. There's another that's 40 acres, but there's like 5 acres that this other parcel, it's hard to access for that one property owner. So what he'll do is he'll deed over 5 acres to the adjacent parcel. And the rare part is a lot of times you'll have property owner 1 and property owner 2 adjacent to each other. And that's fine, because what happens is that 5 acres gets absorbed into the next thing, and it's no big deal. But what happens is you'll have a lot of, it's rare, I just wanted to throw it in here, is that you'll have some ag use properties, some transactions from a third party from outside. Says, I've got 5 acres, and he says instead of it being the adjoining property that he sells it to, he sells it to somebody else that's somewhere else to farm or do whatever with. And that forms a whole new parcel there. That 5 acres is now brand new and it's landlocked. And I've only run into this once, and so the reason that I put that in there, I put that language of an easement to kind of reflect what we already enforce in that homestead split. So in the event that now, it's so rare, my question to you is, I've never seen it, I really haven't, it's just I'm going in my mind, I was going through possible options that would cause this to actually happen. And I've never seen it, so do you want me to keep that in there? Or do you want me to just go ahead and remove it and say that it's considered an illegal split?
So you're mimicking the homestead.
Yes.
Exception. That means there's a homestead in the middle of the section and there has to be a 50-foot easement to get to it when it's landlocked.
Yes.
Okay, and you're gonna mirror that so that I got willed 40 acres, but my brother got willed 5 acres. And now my brother wants to sell that to Cassie.
Yeah.
But it's landlocked.
Yeah.
And so what you want a provision is there has to be a 50-foot easement on my property so that Cassie can get to the 5 acres that she bought from my brother.
Right. You see, yeah.
It's a totally possible scenario.
And that's a scenario. Now, Cassie should go ahead and do a search and determine that it's landlocked, and that should be part of the negotiation.
Right.
When she buys it, is, hey, this is landlocked.
Right.
I gotta have easement.
Yeah. And it's pretty much the way I've got it written. I basically mirrored that other provision.
And that easement then stays with that property forever, right?
Yes, yes.
So an easement doesn't leave with the current owner, it's with that property forever.
Because it'll be recorded with the survey itself, it'll show it on the survey.
I'm good with you leaving it in there,
That's what I was
Tim.
gonna say, I don't see anything wrong with just
There's
leaving
an
it in there.
opportunity it could be used.
Yeah, about the time you say
somewhere
it'll never happen, that's when it'll happen.
Yeah.
And the provision I have in here to kind of the caveat to this is the lot created shall maintain the minimum lot frontage, all that good stuff. And then on number 3, I've got, in the event a residential structure is proposed for the new parcel created from that split, no building permit may be issued until a subdivision exception through you guys is approved.
Okay, question, I have a question and we need to back up. What is a frontage minimum fee? 400?
We've got 400, but I usually work with people on that, quite honestly. Because I know a lot of times because of topography and stuff, you can't get 400 feet because you're gonna be kind of, especially if you're getting really close to the cities where the lots are a little bit smaller, or start getting smaller, you're not gonna be able to get that minimum 400 feet. You're probably only gonna be able to get, that's why I said 50 to 100 or maybe even 200 feet,
Well, should we address that? I mean, if we say 400 and you're working with them, then you're going not according to 400.
Well, it's hard to do. The 400 works if it's in, like, let's say the middle of, let me get up here on this map over here and show you. The 400 feet works really good if you're in like a section like way up here or up in here in Fragrant Hill.
Yeah.
But when you get closer to the city and people are starting to split off, they can't do it because they want to split off, but they can't do it because they're crowded out.
Okay, hold on, you're talking in the city, that has nothing to do with us.
No, outside, just outside.
As you get closer to
As you
like
get closer.
more populated areas.
As you get closer to around this area here, it gets a little denser. And the widths of the lots start getting kind of compacted.
Yeah. I understand.
I think that maybe instead of changing the rule, you ought to have them come and present it to the board, like and look at it case by case.
If it doesn't
As an
fit,
exception.
then do that.
Yeah, that's it.
That way
That would,
no one gets, you know what I mean? You could end up with a lot of driveways.
And that's what, a lot of driveways,
Yeah.
which becomes a safety issue.
Yes.
And a rural township issue.
And there is times where it probably makes sense and it's a good idea to not require the 400 feet, but I think that maybe that should be it should be a group decision, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. I said, just have that as part of as part of that exception, so that if they come to me and say, oops, and you won't be able to make it, go to the planning commission, let them sign off on that.
Yeah. And that's what I was actually going for with this,
Okay.
the square root of an acre, 208 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the minimum is 3 acres.
now we understand.
That was my thinking.
Now that's what
And
was going on.
I was way ahead. But what's the ratio 4 to 1 I saw there?
4 to 1 is.
Explain that to me.
Is the width is like, let's say,
So 400 feet by 100 feet?
like 100 feet wide by 400 feet deep.
Uh-huh.
So that's the ratio that we try to stay.
So it can't be less than that, so it can't be 400 feet by 50 feet. It has to be 400 feet by 100.
That's the other thing that we may have to look at because, that it's a lot of times they can't get to that exact.
Well,
ratio.
I'm sorry, if they can't get to it, they can't get to it. That's not my,
Okay.
that's not my issue.
A 50-foot lot would be pretty small in a rural community. I mean, like in town,
Yeah, like what would be the point of
Well,
it?
the
50-foot yards.
4 to 1 is just strictly to give you a ratio to work with.
Sure.
And I'll be very honest with you, I've only run into that once.
Mhm.
I've only run into that once, and it's, they ended up correcting it, after it was recorded, they ended up correcting it. So it's a, I just wanted to throw it out there and see, kind of how you all felt about that too, you know, the 4-to-1 ratio.
What do you think, James?
It makes sense. It's in line with kind of what we've done before, you know, and if somebody can't meet that, if they can't do the 400-foot frontage, they've always been able to come in and do a variance.
Sure.
You just gotta present it, just gotta have their ducks in a row.
Yeah, I think that,
I mean, that's
I can't envision a reason why that would need to happen now, but you know what I mean, I can certainly.
I would just hate to see driveway after driveway after driveway.
That's called a subdivision.
Yeah,
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Well, I know like we're one of those that did 5 acres in the middle of our 5 acres, but it was adjacent to the road. And we worked out a deal where we didn't use the driveway, we didn't make a new driveway, we used an existing driveway.
Yeah, sure.
So we just did an easement up to our property on our own, through our own property.
And-
And that was
And a
the way to
subdivision,
get around it.
a subdivision is gonna be then designed by a engineer and architect.
Right, and they'll do traffic counts, and they're probably gonna have one ingress and egress.
There you
And
go,
then you go into it, and then the drive for the whole thing runs like on the ridge of the hill.
there you
And then
go.
the lots come off of it
Sure.
is normally, I mean, we've seen that numerous times.
so, just to kind of, now we start getting into, the next thing is the subdivision exception, kind of laying that out on the next page. It's, all legally recorded parcels created since January 1st, 2017, since I started, are subject to the following. The planning commission may approve the creation of one additional lot for residential purposes through subdivision exception with the following conditions. And this is where I start getting into the recordable covenant. I basically took the same language that was currently enforced under item 4 under 3-106, and I broke it down into 3s. I took the statement and broke it into 3 separate A, B, and C statements. And so the recordable covenant between the owner and the county for the entire original tract, executed by the owner and or owners of the county, restricting further division of the original tract without full platting of the remainder of the original tract. The rezoning to the appropriate zoning district as well. Covenant shall include the requirements that rezoning and platting shall be in conformance with then applicable zoning subdivision regulations in Dickinson County, Kansas, and shall be binding to all heirs and assigns of both lots. Said covenant shall be recorded with the Register of Deeds of Dickinson County as a condition of approval of the agricultural split, with no construction authorized shall be issued until such time as the covenant has been recorded. So after they would come to you, they would record this covenant with my paperwork. You know. And I think that by doing that, it would allow that one, and this is where I'm gonna start getting into explaining this a little bit better, but the advantages of this process, of the subdivision exception, is the process enables the enforcement of the spirit and intent of the preservation of agricultural land as outlined within the comprehensive plan, while also enabling the property owner to pursue what they want for their property with regard to either residential or agricultural use. And number 2, it allows the establishment of lower density residential use in the areas of the county where such use is appropriate, while preventing overcrowding of unplatted single-family lots in of higher density areas. So that's what I was describing to you earlier. Sure. And so what I can do is, let me real quick draw this, do my little artwork today. Okay, got 2 parcels. This is 50 acres. 50 acres that was created in 2016. So before I got here. Then you have down here 10 acres created in 2017 that I have on file as a created through the current system that we have, which is the administrative split, would be an administrative split. The one split rule. And so the way it currently sits is if somebody tries to split this again, let's say they want to put another house, let's say they want to farm the rest of this. And they want to put a farmstead here, they want to put a little house here. Well, and then after a few years, they're going to split that off, 10 acres or whatever. They would, if they sell that house, technically they would have to, a lot of lenders don't, unless they're paying cash, a lot of lenders don't allow for that without some sort of acreage to separate from the ag. So now you have a situation with this subdivision exception. It enables them to split this 10 acres off here via, and let's say they do it this year, 2023, via the subdivision exception if it's approved. Now this is the original parcel because it was pre-2017. So that means the rest of this, that's where that covenant comes in, where they would record it and say they can't split any more of this until, the remaining 30 acres that there is. They can't split this any further until they come with either a full subdivision plat or they get it, appropriately rezoned to, they can split it, but they would have to split it with a full plat, and with 30 acres and you're talking 10 acres each, you're talking about 3 more lots being created for a subdivision. So the remainder of this would be platted and zoned as residential.
Or they could break off another patch if you went to work in Marion County and someone else came in, under the current rules, it all starts, it all starts over then, doesn't it?
Well, if somebody comes in with let's say, what are you talking about?
If you went to work at Marion County and they hired me to take.
Well, yeah, the way that it's currently
right
working
now,
now,
then they can break it off.
then they could break this off.
Yeah.
And then that causes problems because eventually this is going to be split off. And
For sure.
This is going to be split off, and you want to prevent that.
Okay,
for sure.
And you've got a total of 50, the square is 50.
Yeah.
And you've got a 10 and a 10, but really our rules say the minimum is 3. So that could be a 3 and a 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 and a 3.
Yeah.
But I just throw that out there because the majority of the ones that I've seen are about 10 to 15 acre splits.
Okay.
The other example I'm going to use is, let's say you have this guy here, property owner X, and property owner Y. This is 20 acres. This one's 40. And this property owner wants to deed 3 acres to this guy because there's, let's say there's a little creek that runs through here that you can't access. This guy can access it, but this guy can't. So this guy's going to give this guy 3 acres. It gets absorbed in, so that's no big deal. But if you get person, let's say person Z, that's outside of it, it's neither one of it, that's like somebody else, a third party that buys that little acreage, then property owner Z, that's 3 acres, and in order for them, they can keep it there, but if they try to put a house on that 3 acres or 5 acres, whatever it is, they'll have to come in and get the subdivision exception and show that, so like if they come in to try to get a building permit for that, they'll have to go through you guys. And they'll have to abide by putting an easement through there to get to that. That kind of is kind of a rough summation of what I did, what I was thinking.
And right now, underneath our current guideline, can that 3 acre transfer take place of ag land
Well,
because of the creek? I mean, I get the logistics of a
Yeah.
creek cutting off 3 acres. Today, in our current guideline, can they transfer that over?
yeah, they can actually do it, but it's but usually, this is the part that I was telling you where I highlighted this is rare. This is rare.
Yeah.
And most commonly, what happens is now, the way the zoning regulations are and since I've been here, I've just seen where, like, this guy will absorb that in. So he gets just that little bit
Mhm.
and it absorbs into his property. And yeah,
So Y has it.
yeah,
Okay, so now let's right.
Don't think too hard.
I got a question. I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
So we had a piece of farm ground and the railroad cut off 5 acres.
Yeah.
And the railroad on 40 came, this was the 80, railroad and old 40 cut off 5 here.
Mhm.
And the other guy's property, he had 5 acres here, and I just did a quick claim deed. I paid for it $50 and I gave him this, he gave me that, and my property now looks like this.
Yep.
And his property now absorbs that.
Right.
And it was just quick claim deeds, and it was, I think I talked to you about it, and I just said that.
yeah.
That makes all the sense in the world.
I can see a waterway doing that too, like some of the waterways and stuff, the way that they run.
Yeah,
It's
I've run into a lot of that.
It's when somebody wants to put a residence on something is
Yes.
when it gets complicated.
So that's where it's changing to where they would come to us.
Yes, to
the
have a
residential
house put on
piece.
there, if you have a third person, not this guy or this guy, but somebody else comes and says, hey, I wanna get that 3 acres from you, you know, and it forms a new parcel, because what happens is by the registered deeds will record that deed and it will show up as a new parcel.
Okay, there's my question. If Z purchases that 3 acres from X,
Okay,
can X now sell off 10 acres to the south to build a house?
Is that considered a split?
Yeah, has he already split it once and that's all he can do?
well, that's the thing, he split this once.
That's
But
right.
and that's the way, under the current regulations. But if this were done in, like, let's say 2016, if this whole parcel here, this whole arrangement dates from 2016, where he has this one here and this one here, and this dates from 2023, this is an original parcel, or these would be considered original parcels. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, if they split this, that's their one administrative split.
Okay.
But I would probably have them, because they're wanting to, put a house up there and because it's landlocked, and I just said, you know, bad example, but I said, you would have to do a subdivision exception on this one because, it's
For the
technically.
easement.
Yeah, for the easement. But they can split this again. If, like, let's say in 2017, they split off 2018, 10 acres. That's their first administrative split. And this one splits off, that becomes the one that comes before you guys. And if they split this off again, they would have to go actually before you twice, because this one and then this one, technically this one it's a special case, it would be a
No matter
special
what,
case.
it'll.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but this is, like I said, this is rare. And so I just kind of like, you know, where that forms a separate parcel, that's rare. And so just. Thoughts, or it is
Any more
okay?
questions?
No.
So we've got the two options, continue with how it currently is, or, submit a resolution including new language for 310-106 for consideration at the next hearing. So staff recommends option 2. Do we have any other discussion? Any motions?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept staff's recommendation of, what's the number?
3-2.
3-6.
106.
3-106.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second for staff to move forward with option 2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. And floodplain maps.
I got,
Don't say it.
no, it's okay.
I've heard that 3 times, you know, we've heard it 3 times for this, so we got next spring and then, well, something happened.
I guess there is another alternative that's now that it's over off the record, you could hire somebody to off the zoning county.
Then we start over.
We start over, yep.
Yeah, so.
We can get on the
If I
business.
wanted to split it off again, I guess.
Staff,
You
staff
get
does
that
not,
desperate, right?
staff does not recommend that.
It's a little too intense. No, as far as the floodplain maps, we did get a letter from DWR, an email saying that I'm going to say tentatively, what they call the letter of final determination is going to be sent to us in August.
That sounds good.
Yeah. And so, and they said with a February 1st adoption or effective date for those new maps.
Good. And is that basically the same thing that was gonna be effective February 2021?
Yeah.
And then just kind of, we're a couple years
Yeah,
delayed.
they've messed up apparently there was, their original contractor they used didn't include a whole lot of data that they wanted to see, and so they had to go back and redo it. Some of the elevations were off, and so it's supposedly done now. Fingers crossed.
That could save some people a lot of money, I mean, that's a big deal, you know, some of these properties that are on the front, yeah, that's.
As always.
Yeah.
And the only other thing that we're gonna be doing is next month, just to kind of give you a heads up, we got 2 cases pending. We got one that's Chuck Henry is in the process of relocating down to the southeast part of Solomon. And he just purchased some land, and he's gonna make room for Caniquip. They're gonna be moving there, and Caniquip is moving there because of Kubota in Salina is moving into Caniquip's current location, so. So that's a lot of activity there, and then the other item that we'll have probably next month is another telecommunication tower.
Let's not have it by the airport.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's in the,
Or a flight path.
it'll ironically, it's gonna be right next to where Chuck Henry's is right now.
Oh.
And so it's.
Barely in Dickinson County.
Yeah, barely.
Yeah. So that's all I got.
All right, so
Cool.
we have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
all those in favor, have a good night.
Thank you for the updated zoning regulations.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
No problem.
Next week, we're gonna talk about how to.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't get Wichita through, the Wichita letter?
No, I have,
Oh,
we don't have like tea.
Sneaking behind you.
We don't have.
Tim, may I borrow a pen?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have.
I just like that.
The Valley in Wichita,
Right, so.
on NBC, at Monday, I was wondering.
Take it easy, yeah.
No way.
And it was a mistake, and she looked at it, and the other guy said,
Take care.
Lucy,